Think about Antarctica for a second. For more than 60 years, it's been the world's last great wilderness, right? A symbol of peace, of science, a place set apart from all our conflicts. But that foundation of peace, well, it's starting to crack, and we really need to understand why.
You see, the entire political arrangement for the continent rests on this one thing, the Antarctic Treaty System of 1959. And this thing was a remarkable achievement. I mean, think about it. Right in the middle of the Cold War, this pact effectively demilitarized an entire continent, turning it into a global park for science. It was designed to keep the peace.
But what happens when the spirit of that treaty gets challenged? What if this continent of science is quietly becoming the stage for a new, global, great game? That's the critical question we're diving into.
Now, the first signs of trouble, the first cracks in the ice, so to speak, they're not actually on the ice sheet itself. They're in the waters that surround it. This battle for the Southern Ocean shows us exactly how that cooperative ideal is being replaced by some pretty hard-nosed national interest. So picture this. At a recent international meeting, you had two completely opposite visions just clash head-on. On one side, you have Chile and Argentina, and they're championing this massive marine protected area, an MPA, to protect a really critical ecosystem. But on the other side, you've got Norway, and they're pushing a plan to dramatically expand commercial krill fishing right in the heart of that very same area.
And the scale of this proposed expansion was just staggering, a 94% increase. That would nearly double the annual krill catch to almost 1.2 million metric tons. And you have to understand, krill isn't just another fish. It's literally the foundation of the entire Antarctic food web. Everything from penguins to blue whales depends on it. A move like this doesn't just impact one species, it threatens the whole system.
But the justification they gave was maybe even more revealing. The CEO of the world's largest krill fishing company actually called this huge increase a necessary concession to get other fishing nations to agree to the conservation area. Critics, of course, saw right through this, calling it exactly what it was, holding conservation hostage for profit.
And this wasn't just some commercial dispute. This was geopolitical hardball. The proposal for that new protected area was ultimately vetoed, reportedly by Russia and China, who have a history of blocking these kinds of things. But then, it got even more chilling. Right before the meeting, Russia arrested a key Ukrainian scientist, a well-known conservation advocate, and Ukrainian officials were crystal clear. They believe his arrest was a direct attempt to silence opposition to Russia's interests. This is raw power politics bleeding into a forum that's supposed to be about science.
This whole fight over fishing is really just one symptom of a much larger strategic competition that's playing out across the ice. It's all part of a bigger picture, a new kind of Cold War, emerging in the coldest place on Earth. To really get the stakes, you have to look at this map. The 1959 treaty didn't solve the territorial claims from 7 different nations. It just froze them. It created this intentionally vague situation, making Antarctica the largest area on the planet with unrecognized borders. Everyone basically agreed to disagree, all for the sake of peace. But today, the treaty members are splitting into 2 very clear blocks with totally different goals. You've got the conservation states, like the US and its allies, who want to preserve the continent for science, and then you have the exploitation states, led by China and Russia, who seem to be actively trying to shift the treaty's focus towards commercial use and, well, resource extraction.
And China's actions here really do speak volumes. It now operates 5 research stations, with a 6th one on the way. Its newest station, Qinling, is interestingly placed strategically right near America's main hub, McMurdo Station. Now, internationally, Beijing calls it climate research, but their domestic reports also mention resource exploration. This has analysts deeply concerned about dual-use infrastructure, science stations that could pretty easily double as facilities for satellite tracking and surveillance.
And this chart just brilliantly illustrates the logistical reality on the ground. Russia operates a fleet of over 40 icebreakers. Some of them are even nuclear-powered. The United States, it has maybe 2 or 3 operational polar icebreakers. This icebreaker gap gives Russia and increasingly China a massive advantage in just being able to access and operate on the continent. So the crucial point here is this stark contrast. As the US proposes slashing its polar science budget by as much as 70%, its strategic rivals are pouring money into new stations, new airfields, and modern icebreakers. It is a clear and rapid shift in the balance of power on the continent. So all this intense competition, this investment, this geopolitical maneuvering, it all begs the question, why? Why is this frozen wasteland suddenly so important? Well, the answer lies buried deep beneath all that ice. Even though the treaty strictly bans mineral extraction, climate change is making the continent more and more accessible, and nations are positioning themselves for a future where that ban might not hold. The prospecting, you see, has already begun, just under the guise of science. And this is what they found. According to evidence presented to the British Parliament, Russian geological surveys have identified massive reserves under the Southern Ocean. The estimated total? 511 billion barrels of oil. To put that into perspective for you, that is 10 times the entire output of the North Sea over the last 50 years.
For experts, Russia's actions aren't just about finding oil. They are about challenging the entire system. As British MP Tobias Ellwood put it, Putin is deliberately testing international norms, and he's betting that the West will be too risk-averse to actually stand in his way. It is a direct challenge to the spirit and the letter of the Antarctic Treaty.
This clash isn't just happening in a vacuum. There's a specific date on the horizon that is driving all this urgency and turning what was a slow-moving competition into an all-out sprint.
Okay, so here's the timeline. In 1991, an environmental protocol was added to the treaty, and that's what included the explicit ban on mining. But here is the critical part. In the year 2048, key provisions of that protocol can be reviewed. This opens the door for any treaty member to request modifications, including, potentially, lifting the ban on mining.
And that 2048 date changes everything. It means that every station being built, every survey being conducted, and every political move today is about gaining leverage for that future negotiation. Nations are jostling for physical and political position right now, preparing for the day the rules might just be rewritten.
So this brings us to the final crossroads for the continent. Antarctica is caught between the 20th century ideal of a peaceful, scientific preserve and the 21st century reality of a resource-hungry, multipolar world.
Let's just break it down. The treaty's ideal of a continent exclusively for peace is colliding with the reality of political vetoes. The freedom of science is being twisted into a potential cover for resource prospecting. The ban on mining is being tested by the discovery of vast oil reserves. And that original spirit of international cooperation, it's giving way to a new great game for power and influence.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question. The Antarctic Treaty was a product of a different era, a bipolar world held in check by the Cold War. But can that legacy of peace survive the intense pressures of today's resource scramble? The fate of the world's last wild continent really does hang in the balance.